First of all, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for attending this session. It will be titled with the answer of the mining industry talented shortage, especially talking about women in mining. And we have our speakers here, speaker guests, and I will start with the one by one to introduce themselves. Let's start with Stacy. Hello, Stacy.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes, lovely. So my name is Stacey Hope. I'm a partner in a company called ERM, which is a sustainability company. But for this panel, I'm wearing probably my more important hat as the managing director of an organization called Women in Mining, which focuses on advocacy around women in the industry and driving the equitable distribution of talent.
Sahar.
Assalamu alaikum jami'an. Hello, my name is Sahar Swad al-Dhahab. I'm an investment director at Manara Minerals. And for this panel, I'm talking about women in mining, women in investments, women in finance, and more largely, really the answer to the talent shortage for women. It's great to be here and make all of your acquaintances.
So excited. To the next, Layla, please.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Layla Al-Habsi. I'm currently working at the Ministry of Industry and Mineral Resources. I'm managing the Mineral Resource Development Strategy and Planning. My background is I'm a geologist, so I'm very proud and happy to be sharing the stage with my colleagues in the industry as well.
Last and not least, Dana.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to see the amount of ladies that are joining us today, and the gentlemen as well. I am Dana Al-Isa, and I work with His Excellency the Vice Minister's office as an advisor. I've been in the mining industry for a short 3 years. I was running the strategy and PMO in the banking industry, so I have absolutely nothing related to mining, but here I am speaking about women in mining, strangely. Absolutely.
Here we go. So let's start with Dr. Stacy. And to be honest, she is one of the speakers that contribute in different subjects at FMF, and we are lucky to have her here with us. Dr. Stacy, how can we use ESG to propel KSA at the mining, just like how it's being utilized now?
Yes, it's a very important question because we think that mining refers to one type of role, but as we're seeing, especially in the kingdom, there's a connection between mining and doing mining well and doing mining right. So what does that mean? It means that we all benefit, but we do it in a way that's sustainable, that can see mining in the long term succeed, but also everyone along the journey. So I think that when it comes to ESG and the kingdom, you're in a very strategic position at this moment. And it's a really great time for Saudi because your mining isn't new to the kingdom, but mining, in terms of the trajectory in which it's going, it's quite new, it's quite fascinating. And we haven't seen this type of growth for a long time in any jurisdiction globally. So because we're growing so quickly, we have to make sure that we're growing quickly in the right way.
Yeah.
And that means that we need to think about the environment. We then need to think about the people who live and exist in the environment. And then we need to think about those structures around the people, around the environment, around the ways in which we do those things in order to ensure that we do it well and we have a level of ethics and a level of accountability and transparency that goes with what we do. And that doesn't require being a geologist, although we need more geologists. So if you're studying geology, thank you so much. Go into geology, go into technical roles. But we need people who can see the world in different ways. We need people who can see that if I dig in this area, then that has significant implications to the ecosystem. And if that's the case, then we need to build certain safeguards in order to mitigate those risks. And we need those people who think about the people who exist. In this group, in this area, we have a local tribal community who have existed on this land for so long and they know the land. How can we leverage that knowledge? How can we bring them into the conversation of mining and make sure that they participate in a way that's equitable and that actually makes for a safer environment? So we need people who understand these things. And for the kingdom, because it's growing so quickly, it's important to see the changes.
Yeah.
So we're seeing this built in, not just in the policies and the legislations and the directives coming out of the kingdom, but we're seeing it in the private sector. We're seeing a growth in women in the industry, in Ma'aden, for example. In 2018, 2017, there were probably like 1, 2, or 3 women, no more than that. Now there are over 300 women.
Yeah.
That's a short space of time. But with that comes good governance. How do we ensure that women are protected when they're in these positions, when they're in the role? And how do we ensure that our male colleagues, our male allies, understand the roles in which we play? ESG talks about this stuff. It's not something new. We've just given it a fancy little acronym and a title, but it's sustainability at the heart of it. It's building a resilient model to ensure that we're building a good industry. We want to do good business. We want to make sure that we participate in an industry that we believe in and that we see can help us, our families grow, and then for generations that can sustain our own growth, right? So that's where I see ESG playing a role and where I think we need to think a little bit differently about what the mining sector looks like. Because what we're seeing now is actually not what it will be in 5, 10 years.
Of course.
So we need to think about how this will grow, what it will look like. It'll be a different iteration, especially now that more women and more women and more women are coming into the industry. We're going to see a change in what that looks like for the kingdom. So to answer your question,
I love what you said.
ESG will propel the industry, but it takes the people in order to drive that. It takes lots of voices, and you have lots of different voices here. Despite us all being women, we bring all different voices, and that's what ESG is about.
Yeah. Actually, here, after this very good answer as usual, but while we're talking here about the environment, preparing the environment, and a lot of work waiting us to do to achieve what we dream, let's move to the women in investment. And it's easy to ask Sahar, while she is a role model today here, is this easily translated for investor? That what should we be doing to consider women within mining investment today?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. Look, I was gonna maybe start with a more general answer, which is it easily translated to investments? Given maybe I introduced myself as saying I can speak to women in mining and investments and in finance. I think it's important to think about women representation generally as underrepresented, right? Women are underrepresented in many industries, not just in investments, not just in mining. And there's a lot of research out there, which I will not touch on because I'm not the expert on research, but there's a lot of research there that talks about the importance of having women in companies, what that means to the profitability of a company from a financial perspective, from an operational perspective. But has that then translated to having more women within those companies in leadership positions? Not necessarily, or at least not at the rate that it should have at this point. So rather than maybe talk about it in a general sense of has it translated in investments, I want to maybe touch on a little bit of more simple actions that companies can do, and investment companies for sure can do, to increase participation of women in companies. Yeah. And I'll start with, and something I think that Stacey touched on when she said, if you're studying geology, please go ahead. If you're a woman, our male allies, we appreciate you, we need you, But if you're a woman studying geology, please do that. But I think it starts with STEM education generally for females. Advocate for women to study sciences. As companies, there's a recently inaugurated Bachelor of Science in Mining,
Yes.
which I'm sure you're all aware of. In the Kingdom, we're very proud of that program here. There are schools of excellence that were inaugurated in the northern border with Ma'aden as well, which this vocational kind of technical training is very important. From a personal perspective, I could probably say growing up in the Kingdom, I never studied geology. My brother did because it wasn't part of the program for females. Now it is. So that is starting early. When we say start early, this
yeah.
is what we mean by start early. And then as an investment company, at least from a Manara perspective, and I'm happy to see some of my female colleagues here,
Yeah.
and shout out to my male colleagues in the back. It's important to think about how do we empower companies that think about ESG and specifically the S in ESG, which we always talk about, Stacey, which is social, to increase women participation. So do you then prioritize companies that have female operations, female-led operations?
Yes.
Do you make it a point to be part of your investment framework
Yes.
to invest in companies that prioritize ESG? And internally, within investment companies, how do you empower females in your team? And to me, as a female that was started in finance in the Kingdom when not a lot of women were in investment banking, I remember I was one of five. This was a long time ago. I would not admit how long ago. We need to empower females via mentoring programs,
Yes.
via leadership training, most important from my perspective, because if you talk to a lot of females in any industry, and specifically in mining, you'll find that they enter mining at a more junior stage, but do they stay there for the long term? So that's where leadership training becomes critical. And I'll say last but not least, it's culture, culture, and culture. This is something I always say.
Yeah, agree.
Is you want to retain people, you make sure that women feel like they belong to an innovative group of people, that they feel safe.
Yeah.
If you're a mining operator, that means having the right PPE. So I recall speaking to one of my colleagues from Ma'aden, and she was telling me about how Ma'aden didn't necessarily have the right PPE gear for women until very recently. So you want more women participation at the mine, have the right PPE gear. You want more women investors, make sure that you are giving them the right training to participate in that. And they feel safe in those environments. They feel safe to speak up. Again, another point that there's a lot of research on is women don't feel as comfortable speaking up in a group of people as males do.
Yeah.
Again, I speak to that to my colleagues about that quite often, and it's something I needed to work on quite a bit, and I will admit that. And so, making sure if you're a male ally to the females in your company, making sure that you give them the room to speak, and you do that maybe in a safe space first, and then you do that in a larger space externally, so that you are actually training them. You're not really throwing them under the bus and then just
Agree.
fostering their fears.
Agree.
So that would be my answer for women in general, and then investments more specifically.
Thank you, Sahar. It was so inspiring to engage people to studying geology, and for our luck that we have a geologist between our speaker guest today, and she is belong to us at the government, Leila. Leila, as I know, you're one of the unique geologists with the experience between investor and working with between technical and leading the economical investment in the mining sector. What is the role of women in the technical and strategy to development side of mining from your perspective, while you are a technical background and you're working in a leadership in leading this investor opportunity and looking to the technical detail before you give them the opportunity. And I know how much it's important when you're selling that. You have to know the technical details that give you power.
100%.
Please.
100%. So I'm just going to take a step back and talk about Vision 2030 and the National Mining Strategy. So first and foremost, the National Mining Strategy is built on diversification of economic growth, and that's made mining the third pillar of Vision 2030. So when you look at the key components of the National Mining Strategy, one of the most important thing is growing the skill sets here in the kingdom. And given that strategy is extremely broad and we look at everything from an eagle eyes view, one of the things that we've noticed from the contribution of women in the mining industry is not just technical, but also from the leadership role itself. They always invite or they basically develop a more innovative approach to problem solving. And most importantly, have a soft approach, which is much needed, especially in our tough mining industry.
Yes, of course.
So this is extremely important, and especially on issues such as ESG, women are known to be huge advocates for it. They offer the perspective of community engagement, making sure that everything that's built in the mining industry is built properly and adheres to the sustainable goals and standards of the international industry. So that's extremely important. Another thing that we can look at also for the tech side, let's say women are at the forefront for technology. And especially in mining, for AI, automation, women are very good at these things. And they have been proven to actually drive innovation. And this is extremely needed here, not just to look at the different type of industries in tech, but also to look at the tech in mining as well. Of course, the most important side of it as well is the women geologists.
Yes.
We can all agree here that women pay attention to details. And as a geologist, it's extremely important to pay attention to details. You're going to spot the different rocks from left and right, the different colors, which is extremely important also. And having them on board, I don't believe that there is a difference between a male or a female geologist. They're just a geologist. Attention to detail, of course, goes back to us women, which we're very much stronger on it. This is extremely required right now in the kingdom. And as you said and mentioned, Seher, that we've started the courses, of course, and allowed women to enter the mining industry. It's going to take at least 5 years to get the first batch of female geologists in Saudi Arabia. So strategy-wise, if we're looking at upskilling our own talent here in Saudi Arabia, the action has to happen now. It has to happen now. So I believe that there's a lot that women can contribute in this industry, and especially women in leadership roles, giving the different perspectives. And I believe that Saudi Arabia is able to do it, and they're going to get there.
Thank you so much, Layla. It was so inspiring. Let's go to the government perspective from the house or the place where Women in Mining Saudi established. Let's ask Dana, as she is there before all of us, in that place where Women in Mining KSA born. So, Dana, tell us about Women in Mining Saudi.
So the whole idea of Women in Mining started with the first edition of FMF. And believe it or not, this is our 4th Women in Mining panel. So every year we have a dedicated panel having inspiring ladies like you talking about the challenges, the diversity, what women brings on the table. And that's something very interesting and very important. And I think FMF brought us together, especially with the International Women in Mining, to understand that we all have the same struggles, we all think the same, and we have the same objectives. Yes, I mean, it have a different scale from one country to another, that's for sure. But we definitely think the same, and we struggle in a way or another in the same dynamics. So our focus in the Women in Mining, and this is a discussion I had with Stacy, and she was extremely helpful since the whole idea generated. And we had so many calls and discussions. And last year we signed the MOU with Women in Mining UK, and she's been on board since then.
Was remarkable.
Absolutely. So that was the stepping stone into creating our strategy. And our strategy is divided into 3 pillars. The first pillar is how to attract young, inspiring ladies into the mining, geology, and mining engineer.
Yeah.
And I would want to take this opportunity to say one of our initiative in the mining strategy is to launch a program, mining engineers, and gladly enough, 40% of those students are ladies. So we expect a lot of skill sets that will be generated into the workforce in the upcoming 2 or 3 years. So there's an interest, but we just need to make sure that the road is paved for them to have a proper, career in mining. So the other part is how to retain them. So the young mining professionals that are part of the ecosystem is well tutored in a way or another, just for them to keep them in the loop and to make sure that they have a proper opportunity to excel going forward. We've been doing a lot of initiative in that sense, and we're inshallah going forward with women in mining. I think we are announcing the association very soon, maybe in the next month or so, and we're gonna have the leverage of moving around with all the partnerships that we need.
I'm so proud. Let's back to Sahar, to Manara, because while they are joint venture of Manara, I remember it was one of the outcomes of the first version of FMF.
Yes.
And we were witness that moment with all of hope, and we see Sahar today, seeing Sahar today here between us, and this is really overwhelming. Like, really feel proud that the things going real, and the action is not only propaganda from the forums. What are the ambitions outside of KSA for mining on the perspective of Manara? And how are these being realized through Manara Minerals?
It's a good question. So, I mean, I think Leila touched on it. I'll expand on it a little bit, which is, I mean, the kickoff of all of this, as you said, is the first Future Minerals Forum. That's when Manara was announced. It came on the back of Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030, which is looking to diversify the kingdom's economy away from oil dependence. That means that there were certain economies and sectors that were determined to pioneer that diversification. Mining was established as the third pillar of Saudi economy. That includes domestic as well as international ventures. Manara was basically the baby and the result of that strategy. It is a joint venture, as you rightly said, between Saudi's flagship mining company, Ma'aden, and the Public Investment Fund. And Manara is tasked with sourcing critical minerals to develop the kingdom's supply chain and its ability for industrial development, and really to put Saudi Arabia on the map of international mining investors. So we all know in the mining industry that there is a issue with access to capital, and capital is scarce, and Manara is then able to be Saudi Arabia's way of providing long-term, patient, low-cost capital to the industry to develop resilient supply chains. So that means it is Saudi Arabia's answer to the supply chain issues around the world. And we are working on how do we develop partnerships with international operators in resource-rich regions like Africa, like Latin America, like Asia, to realize that potential. And for Manara, what that ends up meaning is that, and I think we've seen this in FMF. The FMF kicks off as a ministerial roundtable. And the reason is because mining is so especially an intersection of geopolitics and policy. And so for Manara as an investor, given we are geography agnostic, that means we can apply that very special kind of part of our strategy towards developing mining opportunities internationally, and work to come up with good partnerships healthy partnerships to develop these supply chains. So that's the role that we play.
Really sounds great and promising, very promising in the sector. I would love to go to Leila to talk about the strategy of the development of the industry. Then I will back to Dr. Stacy to talk about that global level.
Well, I did mention it in the first answer, which was we are basically using the framework of Saudi Vision 2030, that in turn created the national mining strategy. So I could talk about more about the key enablements, and that would be, of course, taking advantage of our amazing and vast resources here in Saudi Arabia, such as gold, bauxite, and the different minerals we have. The other one is infrastructure investment as well. We're gonna basically look at different projects that are going to help mining companies establish themselves here, making it competitive globally. And the other stuff is, of course, regulatory reforms. This is what we do here at the ministry, which is making it extremely transparent and investor friendly. And as you can see, it's been a success.
I love that
from
part.
the amount of investors we've managed to attract locally and globally. So these are some of the strategies, but most importantly, what we work on together with my boss back there, who decided to attend. We do mineral resource development and management. So this is extremely important, and I think we're one of the first governments here in the Arabic region that is actually looking at resource management and development. It's extremely important to know what kind of resources you have in the kingdom, what the strategy is for them. So if you have gold, what are you going to use the gold for? And make sure that you're utilizing it to the best of your abilities. Under the deputyship of course, our deputy minister Abdurrahman al-Balushi. There's several administrations, and one of them is, of course, in exploration enablement. So we deal directly with the investors as well, and we help ease their entry into the mining industry. So I'm hoping that at least by the end of this FMF, we're going to be getting female exploration investors in the kingdom.
I'm sure SGS team here from the exploration team who is attending now, my colleague and geologist, they are in love with what you said, Leila. Dr. Stacy, what are we seeing globally as to the business case of women in mining?
And we were just given a 3-minute warning, so I'll keep it very brief.
Okay.
So I think maybe just to say that we haven't cracked it yet, right? So don't think that I have the magic pill and I'll give you the answer.
Yeah.
We're still working on it, right? We still have very, very few women as CEOs. There's actually one for a major mining company. And then we have Marna Kloete, who's the president of Ivanhoe, and then you have a female CEO for Freeport.
Well-known name, well-known.
So we don't have many female CEOs leading major mining companies. We don't really have female GMs who can manage the mines themselves. We don't have the answer, but we're doing lots of stuff. Yeah. And that stuff, and I'm saying stuff because there are iterations. All of that stuff is working towards small increments. We want to see faster growth, but it takes not just us believing in ourselves, it takes the whole industry believing in it to create that enabling environment. So culture is important. If your organization does not have a culture that enables and fosters growth and sustained growth with women designed into your business, then whatever you do, you can have internships, you can have mentorships, you can have whatever, it's not going to work because you have not designed the business for women. So that's the first thing. And you haven't developed a culture that can bring women in equally or equitably. Then we talked about internships. Well, actually, no, you mentioned, Leila, about the fact that in 5 years, we're going to see women entering in from this cohort. In the meantime, those same women can benefit from internships because they're now a part of the workforce in a very different way. they're still building and gaining that knowledge through their education, but they're now a part of the workforce and they can feed into that in real time. We don't have to wait for them to graduate. We just have to give them space to participate now. And they're building that knowledge, that experience, so that when they get there, they're not greeted with, well, you need to have 5 years experience. You need to have 1 year experience. This is a way in which you counter that. And that's what we do at Women in Mining UK. Mentorship is important, but reverse mentorship as well, where young people need to inform these big businesses as to what they want so that businesses can design, mining companies especially, can be designed for the future talent pool. So there are many other things I can say, but I will end it here.
So let's give a space to all of you to ask question. Not a very big space because we are already on the time. So who want to ask any question to our guest speaker?
Thank you very much. You are all good presenters and well spoken. I'm Sidikatul Ami Salam,
شباب اعطوني سماعتي.
doctor, a geologist, retired. I've worked for 35 years in the sector.
You're a veteran.
And I can say that all you have said is perfect. But there is something we need to do, and we have to start it now. We have the environment, namely environment to start. In the policy making, we talk about the numbers of women involved. Have we talked about bringing it up statistically, where we have women working with the company, what is their outcome, and that has no women working with them? Let's try that. From there, we will now show our strength. That is what I am proposing, because the KSA has everything to showcase what their women can do. Thank you.
It's a great question. It's weird hearing my voice, so I'll take it. No, it's a great question. And it's a question that we've had for years. So in 2013, Women in Mining UK started the first research report where we looked at the number of women in senior leader on boards. We started at boards, right? We didn't see many women on boards because they inform the strategy. So you want to know, well, how are we setting a strategy without female representation? So we looked at women on boards. And the question there was, what's the correlation between the number of women on boards and certain indicators of performance in mining?
Yeah.
So what's the correlation between having 0 women on boards versus just 1 woman on a board when we look at environmental performance, return on investment, EBITDA, different financial metrics, but also on the E, S, and the G. And we saw the correlation between more women on boards having better performance in all of these different areas versus boards with 0 women. And then we looked at 1 woman versus 2. And the more women you had on boards, the better companies performed. Correlation, not causation, because we can't actually say this is the cause, but we can see the trend. And we used Bloomberg's data for that. And it was incredible to see. So we did it 2013, 2014, 2015, and then recently, and I actually did the last one, the 2015 one, and then we did 10 years later from the first. So in 2023, we released the Mining for Talent Women on Board study with Ernst & Young and White & Case, looking at, well, have we progressed? Marginally. Where we see greater numbers and where it's documented, South Africa. The highest performers in representation of women on boards and in different levels of senior leadership. But that's because it's a policy. It's the policies that drive it. In Canada, it's the investors that drive the number of women. So what is the thing that will drive KSA? That's the kingdom itself. And we're seeing that growth in a very short space of time. People think that it's not a lot, but it's fast growth if you look at it in comparison to the rest of the world.
Any another question? Yes, please.
Hi, good evening. Did you hear me? Yes. Good evening, Dr. Amal Al Ansari from Kuwait University. I'm very, very happy by the invitation to come and see this effort in women in mining. And I have a question to all of you. I don't know who, but did you contact the GCC countries' women in mining? Because your stories, and even yesterday I was contact with a lot of women in this field, and I discovered a lot. Now we have in Kuwait some women. I know they study it in Kuwait University, but are you planning in make awareness or do like internship for Kuwaiti girls? Because I think you are growing in this field and you are the first of leading that. And always I like to build a contact, a community to support you. And now you are leading that. In your strategy, are you planning to do this kind of awareness and work with Kuwait city, Kuwaiti girls about your mission to follow you really? Because you are a
Dana.
leader in this.
If
Thank
you allow me, ladies, to answer this question, this is specifically the role of the Women in Mining Association that we're planning to do. We're doing a Women in Mining Saudi chapter, and we're announcing it very soon. And it's going to be the proper platform to reach out to, as you suggested, women in mining in the education system that are as a flow still, and the women in mining professionals who have expertise within the mining industry across borders, and it's the perfect platform to discuss how to elevate and to learn from each other as well. So that's purely what is the Women in Mining Saudi chapter will be doing, with the help of definitely women in mining.
Just to prove to
Thank
what she's saying
you.
as well.
Whoa, more women.
I'm Armani, and I'm part of Women in Mining KSA as well.
Last question.
Just 1 sec. Now we listen.
Okay, so thank you very much, ladies. I am Dr. Asfour. I am president for the African Alliance for Women Empowerment and the Africa Business Council, which is established by the heads of states to empower the African private sector in Africa, including women, youth, and SMEs. So if we're talking about really women in mining, we have established strategy. We call it the triad of empowerment, which is based on 3 pillars. The first pillar is personal empowerment program, how we can empower the women and build their capacity. The second pillar is about policy advocacy, which is talking about the enabling environment with financial inclusion, with government procurement, because this is one thing that we have been successful, for instance, in Kenya, to have at least 30% of all government procurement goes to SMEs, women, youth, and people with disabilities. So again, environment. The third pillar, which is very important, and my focus is about product development, which is really about value addition and beneficiation for our minerals. In Africa, for instance, take the gemstones. All the gemstones in Africa, we have, Madagascar have 70% of sapphire of the world. We have amethyst, ruby, tanzanite, diamond, whatever. But it all goes outside the continent to be cut and polished and then goes to international market. So my question here, how can we have this collaboration among women in mining, whether with Saudi Arabia, with GCC, with Africa, to build capacity of our women in mining to cut and polish our own stones. So instead of going to Jaipur, India, or Sri Lanka, or Thailand, we cut it, polish it in Africa. Then we have this, so we really need partnerships to see how we can do product development and to show how we empower our real women in mining instead of bringing brokers who come from outside both continents, take the rocks and change it and send it back. So I'm very happy to hear your thoughts. I'm very happy to see how we collaborate for real capacity with industry talent knowledge. That's the name of the panel. Thank you.
Please, Dr.
I'm happy to take that one. It's a very big question. You kind of answered it when you said
Yeah.
it's about partnerships, because that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's about having a multi-stakeholder platform in which all stakeholders can bring their value to the table, especially women who tend to be mostly artisanal and small-scale miners. In Kenya, I'm familiar with, there's Mimo, Miriam, I'll remember her surname, but she is the only female owner of a large gemstone mining company that I know of in the region. She cuts and polishes herself, and she trains local people to do it. That's a great partnership. Why am I not hearing more of these local partnerships with organizations and women like this? But then you have to bring the major players to the table, because what we often see is that we cut small-scale operators out of the wider value chain discussion. So they're not part of the formal, or they're not part of the larger economic conversations. They're still kept at the micro, small, artisanal level. And that's unfortunate, because we then don't see growth. Instead, we have lots of small operators not even able to come together or to expand or to scale. So it's having these multi-stakeholder platforms that can foster growth, that can prepare the environment in order for this to happen. That's why we're seeing a shift very slightly in how some junior miners are operating. They're operating almost like venture capitalists, where they're having incubators, where they're innovating, they're testing, they're not afraid to fail, because the funding is there for them to fail marginally, right? You have to have a good business plan, first of all. But we tend not to think of women in this. That's why earlier I said something about we don't see lots of female founders of mining companies, because they're not able to scale. They don't get the funding. So how do we ensure that we are creating that platform for them to do that? And it takes, there's a model out there that's doing that right now. The Impact Facility does that with artisanal small-scale miners, making sure in DRC through the Fair Cobalt Alliance that women are a part of that conversation, that they have female-fitted PPEs in artisanal and small-scale mining, and that they're able to participate in the wider supply chain or value chain. So it's understanding what models work. We have to do our research a little bit more, but then we also have to think about how does that look for gemstones. Yeah. But Mimo is the woman you need to go and find to start that partnership in Kenya and in East Africa.
Thank you, Dr. Stacy. Let me close this with a very simple statement to answer the question of our panel today. It's like invitation from me. Let's work together in the different level with the all perspective background we have here, and we have more with the audience here. Let's work together on our culture, on our environment, on our partnership to achieve this. And see you coming FMF, while it's yearly, officially this year, as decision by our leadership in the kingdom, and talk about it more. And please, you can share your thought with the FMF team on our website. Any thoughts or ideas for more women in mining activity for the next year. Thank you so much.